talking about staying differentiated as a planter and pastor. We're going to get into some codependence and anxiety, all the fun stuff that is quite sneaky in our leadership that we want to pull into the light and explore. Glad that you're here. This webinar is sponsored by the V3 movement, which is a church planting organization. And we train church planters, both women and men, in a non-traditional approach to planting that explores four distinct areas of boundary crossing mission, life-forming discipleship, tight-knit community, and locally rooted presence. We offer this in different forms and training cohorts, in short immersions, but we've been training leaders for about 12 years and love seeing the groundswell of movement that's happening. So if you're interested in planting in a different type of way, explore the V3 movement. And then I have with me a friend, and he has a new friend for me, but we've gotten to know each other the last couple of years, and I really appreciate the particularity of his work, what he's really, really focused on. He is a CEO of Lead from Transformation, which I love the title of your organization, leading from transformation rather than just leading people into transformation. I love that emphasis. But he does a lot of work on ultimately what does it mean to be an emotionally healthy leader and lead emotionally healthy organizations. He's, I think, in many ways, a pioneer working in this area. And I invited him onto this webinar because I heard his story, I think 5 years ago, around this issue of differentiation and codependence. And it was impactful for me to hear on a very vulnerable, honest level, and the lessons he's learned from it and the ways that it's compelled him into doing some deeper work with other people. So I wanted to have him on here, partly because he's an expert in the area, but mostly because he's actually a practitioner. He's lived through this, and I think you can relate with his story. So we're going to spend a good chunk of the first half of this webinar unpacking what this is. And then we're going to have some space for questions. So if you have questions along the way, we won't answer them right away, but put them in the chat function, and I'll pick through those, and we'll see if we can drill John with some doozies.
hmm
So, John, welcome. Glad that you're here talking about this topic for pastors and planters. Let's get it going. Where do we start? Where do we start with this topic?
Um, Ironically, I think it's with an apology, uh,
Okay.
because because I feel like we're gonna scratch the surface, and
Yeah.
that might frustrate. So I just want to say in
Hmm.
advance, just hold it loosely. We're scratching the surface. We're starting a conversation. I've made
Yeah.
some slides to help give definition, but also
Hmm.
to help locate. I found in this space. When we find ourselves in spaces we don't understand or dynamics happening around us that seem to be, we just don't have language or interpretation for, we first go to, I guess it's me.
Uh,
Typically it's like, I guess it's me. And if we can have a map that explains a little bit of the dynamics and that it's more complicated than I guess it's me, then
right.
it gives us hope, frankly. And then if we
Yeah.
can come out of the fog of shame, then maybe we can find a way to skillfully lead forward the parts in us that need to be transformed and the parts that we can influence around us. So it's
Yeah.
a
That's
conversation
good.
starter is what I want to say. And then the
Great.
second thing is
You
I would
you
start,
said
oh, go
earlier,
ahead.
John, that this is it's offering a lens for interpreting
Yeah,
what's
frameworks.
happening around us. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, so I want to give some frameworks today through my story, and maybe it would resonate with your stories as you're
Hmm.
listening. So I think I would begin with my story. When I was 32 years old, I planted a church in 2009, and it was exciting. Like this church grew quickly. We kind of struck a moment, and
Hmm.
we grew from 10 to 250 in three
Hmm.
years. And it was exciting. We were reaching people, we were baptizing secular people who were coming to faith, we were helping some church hurt people kind of reconnect with church. And there was just a lot going on, a lot of activity, and I kind of had inadvertently positioned myself as the central hub of almost everything. And
Mm,
I'm directing, I'm pastoring, I'm hiring, I'm firing, I'm just trying to build a board, like kind of and play
mm,
catch up on that front. We're trying to find mature people because we're a bunch of 30 somethings and 20 somethings. So I'm trying to find mature people who could be grandmas and grandpas in the church, but we couldn't attract them and they wouldn't stay. And so people thought we were just like I don't know, just a big youth group. And so I'm in my early 30s. We're the grandmas and grandpas spiritually to this like orphanage of, you know, just people with no spiritual parents. And looking back, I was over functioning significantly, and I didn't have language for that. But if I'm honest, there was something in me that would hear a lot of affirmation and accolade for whatever it was at the time, and with my gift set in that moment and who we were attracting. I attracted people who were like really excited, and they would say things like, "We're here to support your vision." And that should have been code word for me, but I didn't have language. And instead of saying, I'm here to support the vision, they said, we're here to support your vision. And they would say, we're here at this church because of you. And it felt really good from an ego perspective. It's like that felt great. And people found that my leadership energizing and exciting. It gave them something kind of like the vision of the church gave them something bigger than themselves to be a part of. And there was so much good in that season that came from that. Baptisms and outreaches and discipleship, and it was beautiful. But on the quiet inside, I'm putting crazy pressure on myself to hold the thing together. And on the inside, I was numbing and burning out. And I didn't have words for it. On the surface, I thought I was like building God's kingdom. But under that, and I was building God's kingdom, but under that, there was an unconscious identity, a need for validation, to have some significant, deeper needs met in my life through pastoring, and that I was trying to get met through pastoring and through my marriage at the time. And my wife and I, we talk about this openly, but we were pretty codependent. And it turns out that's a pattern. Like I was codependent with the church, and it turns out the church was codependent with me. And it turns out that was a parallel in our marriage. And, um, there was a lot of people in the church who were like me, unconsciously trying to get their identity needs met by being a part of this church and through me. And I didn't know that at the time. And that was creating this kind of culture of codependency. So there's a slide. So codependency, what is it? How do you describe it? We could get really like clinical about it, but I want to give some like markers that are maybe ways that codependency shows up relationally or in practical ministry settings. So the slide deck is slide 2, and you'll see that codependency can take different forms, but really it's the gradual loss of ourselves when we become emotionally responsible for another person's emotions, their growth, for their validation, for their approval, for their happiness. And if we're going to use spiritual language, it's really us trying to play God for each other. We don't mean to, but we are. And it's just happening. And so codependency is the gradual loss of self as we become emotionally responsible for another person's emotions, their growth, their choices, their approval, or their happiness. That's on the responsibility side. The other side of it is there's oftentimes like a active and passive participant in codependence. And so the other side of it is somebody who's giving over to another person and making them responsible for their emotions, their choices, their growth, their approval, their happiness. So one person's taking it on, another person's handing it over. And so it takes an unspoken social contract. I'll be this for you if you be this for me, but it's unspoken. It's like I'll give you attention and care if you help me feel indispensable and needed and wanted. And so it's like we make this subconscious handshake with each other is one of the signs of codependency. The other would be trying to meet needs for the other person, to unconscious needs for meaning, purpose, care, certainty, belonging. And I was really good at this. Like I was taking on, I didn't mean to, but I was taking on the I will carry your burdens. And I'm telling myself all of my pastoral theology through the lens of an unconscious codependent tendency. And it came off as an emotional bond with a congregation that was that was sending signals that you can put your expectations on me, your emotional need expectations on me, and on our collective sense of community. We had this utopian sense of community that was setting us all up for major disappointment. And we talked in this terms of community as being this place where we could get our emotional needs met and our spiritual needs met, and Acts 2, caring for each other, and our affirmation and our validation. And I had unconsciously cultured a vision of community that was impossible. It was just impossible. And I didn't know that I was setting us up for something that would really disappoint everybody, because we were putting a God-sized responsibility on each other to be for us what only God could be, or what God had to be primarily first. So there's this a mutual meeting of need expectation. There's the other over functioning I talked about before. One party gives too much, one party relinquishes too much and hands over too much agency. The other is becoming indispensable. I was like, sign me up. This was what I was doing. Trying to get too much of a sense of meaning and spiritual worth, um, from needing to be the needed caregiving leader, wisdom bringer, visionary, just making myself indispensable, not knowing it, but being driven by a deeper need. And then the other was, and we'll talk about this more later, looking for external attachment figures to archetypally give us a security that only God can give us. And we see a lot of this in politics today, like a nation's relationship with their leader can be a nation putting their anxiety on a leader to give them, to reflect back to them that sense of security that they seem to not be able to find on their own. So this is, yeah,
Man, John, yeah. So the these five pieces were at work in back in 2009, 2010, that period of time. Um, how what were this? I know you didn't have this language and you didn't have these are great lenses. What were there things that like you signals or signs or unctions that something was off? Can you recall like
yeah, you don't.
things in
So
your body, relationships?
I didn't know. So codependency, at least in our situation, from a congregation to pastor's dynamic, it works until it doesn't. And this is the nature of codependency. Like codependency works really
Yeah.
well until it
Okay.
doesn't. So like you think about this is
Mm,
codependency. So this is interdependency. I'm making an H. And so I'm me, you're you, and we connect in a way, and but we're standing alone, and
yes.
we're each rooted. But codependency is an A frame. And so if I tip my my expectation, and you tip your expectation. I tip my need, and you tip your need, and we can rest there long enough to temporarily be for each
Mm,
other the spoken or unspoken expectation that we hope and need, then it works really well until somebody shifts, and it's like boom,
mm,
then it kind of like collapses.
yes.
And that's why you see in like really extreme codependent relationships this kind of like on again, off againness of like, where it's working, it's not working, but then we can make it work and we'll make it work and then it's not working. And it
Mm,
worked, but one of the signs that it was not working was somebody's going to bear the anxiety of the relationship. And
ah,
it was manifesting in my body. Codependency is a result one of the major contributors to codependency is anxiety. And so we live in a world where there's external pressures, there's internal narratives and internal pressures acting on social systems, which is what churches are. And it was acting on our church. And then when that happens, there's a manifestation of anxiety.
yeah.
And that manifestation of anxiety was happening in my first person experience in my body.
Mm,
And so I was having panic attacks. I was having like insomnia, and I'm living under the weight of all of
yes.
this self-imposed expectation because of my own inner narrative and my need to prove and my need for external validation that I needed something from these people that I didn't know was there, and that they needed something from me. And so feeling the pressure of that, and I coach a lot of pastors. I see pastors being crushed under this weight all the time, and they don't have
Yeah.
language for it, but it's a systemic anxiety.
Yeah.
Um, I had one pastor recently tell me, he's like, I feel like I'm being pushed from behind by the legacy pressure of this church to always have some kind of big vision that we're swinging for. And he's like,
Mm,
I don't even want to come up with another big vision, but the legacy pressure keeps pushing me, and I just feel like I have to do it. And I'm
ah,
like, that's codependent anxiety manifest in his body, like pressed through
yes.
that emotional system.
Yeah. John, the personality differences. So I know your Enneagram type, you've told me,
Yeah.
and I have one too. Does the way that we internalize these expectations show up differently based on our personality? Like this is
I
who
think
I
so.
need to be for these people.
Yeah, I think so. And I think um, I only know my
Yep.
personality, but I coach a lot of
Yeah.
people. And I think it manifests differently. I think what you see is you see externalizations and internalizations. You
Yes.
see detachment, and like you see like
Uh,
withdrawal, fight or flight, right? You see flight and you
yep.
see fight. So I'm a fight. So like I will
Yep.
I will work harder to meet others' expectations that are implicit. And then you
Yes.
see others who are like they're
Yep.
trying to self-preserve, and they're going in the cave hard.
Right.
And then people are coming to the cave and saying, "Come out from the cave. We need you. We need you." And they're like, "No, I can't come out." Or they do come out, but they're doing damage to themselves trying to come out from the cave. And
Yes.
like the inner turmoil and the inner tension that they're bringing as they're kind of trying to come out from the cave. Whereas I wasn't going in a cave. I was just like, I can do that for you. I can be that for you. I can be that for you.
Right. Yeah.
And
Mm.
and those would be the extremes. And obviously there's things in the
Yeah.
middle. But as I
Yeah. I
described that to
resonate.
you, does that resonate?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I that the retreat. I mean, I had a period of 3 or 4 years where I couldn't retreat enough. I in
Yeah.
the clamoring was Dan,
Yeah.
come out of hiding, come,
Yeah.
and I nothing. I couldn't hide enough, and
Yeah.
I wasn't aware of why I was hiding, or retreating, or trying to detach, or trying not to be seen. But it was really related to that anxiety of my confusion or my identity, who I needed to be for the people around me. And some of it was projection. That's another question I have is how much are legitimate expectations? How much of it is perceived expectations that can you talk about some of that? I mean, it's hard
Yeah.
to, every context is different, but that was
Yeah.
some of the ghost haunting me was, am I doing this because this is really what is being asked of me? Am I doing this because this is what I think I need to be because of my past? And um,
Yeah.
got confusing.
Yeah. Um, yeah. If you can bring up slide 3,
Hmm.
I'll speak to this because
Yeah.
there's a there's dynamics happening that um are acting on us that are not it's not any one single point of failure, Dan. It's a
Yes.
constellation. And so the codependence is a manifestation of anxiety. And so you have
Yeah.
on this column, you have the pressures of life, and it says external pressures, so demands, expectations, complexity,
Hmm.
uncertainty. And then you have relational pressures, so others' needs that they're projecting on you. Those are really
Yes.
hard to determine if they're
Hmm.
real. But
Okay.
because they're often hints and unconscious unconscious expectations that are likely there because people are people and these are emotional systems, but they can be dialed up in exaggeration depending on the bottom one, the internal pressures, personal
Hmm.
wounds, unmet needs, perfectionism, fear of not being enough. So
Yeah.
you may have the middle one, relational pressures, unspoken expectations, or maybe even just spoken expectations.
Hmm.
But depending on where you are with internal pressures, can like inner ear amplify those
Yes.
relational pressures. And that's why it's hard to untangle these things by yourself. You just can't.
Yes. Yes.
You can't. You
Yeah.
need you need somebody, a companion who can walk you
Yes.
through untangling what is yours, what is theirs.
Yes.
Because especially at first, if this is new, you're probably blended somehow, or you're defended. So blended would be like, I can't tell my anxiety from their anxiety. And then defended would be it's all their anxiety and you're just
Right.
externalizing it. I see that all the time too. It's
Yeah.
them. So you
Yes.
have like, it's me. And then the opposite is it's them. And it's probably both. And we sometimes
Right.
need a guide to figure out which
Yes.
part of this blender is my part and which part is their part.
Yeah.
And I couldn't tell that
Mm.
on my own. Not until I
Yeah.
had some
Yeah.
healing, some frameworks, till Edwin Friedman,
Yep.
help
Yep.
help me figure out differentiation and I could map it and I could say, oh, here's where I am today and here's where I need to be. So that's what I mean by it's
That's
it's
great.
hard to tell, but it it's not one single thing. It's these are anxiety is pressure acting on emotional systems. So it's like it's one of the pressure points.
Yes. It's good, John. This gets a little complicated when I think in our cultural moment, John, and this is what I'm is there's been so much church hurt, legitimate church hurt that I know a lot of pastors and planters who are leading communities that pledge that they will never hurt people again, that they will be the healing community, the safe community. Um, they are leading with you can expect that this environment is going to finally be the one that's
Yes.
not going to hurt you.
That's right. That's right.
Um, and uh, well, you already know what I'm getting at. There is how does that? um, man, how do we differentiate from having to promise that, be that to prevent church hurt and um, being rooted in who we are?
Is it's so funny, isn't it? Like I see this in transformation work. The very I think you had posted something about this the other day too on social media, but like the very thing that we're trying to avoid, we create.
Yeah,
And and so it's like we're trying to avoid being the community that hurt us, being the community that hurt us. And so
yeah,
in the attempt to not be the community that hurt us, we become the community that hurts.
yes,
And
yes.
and that's
Hmm.
the codependence there is when we promise when we take on the responsibility of God-sized
That's good.
um, need meeting for people that essentially we sign up to be God for them. And so the community, this is why I say like a hyper utopianism of
Yes,
a hyper utopianism of community. It's a hyper idolatry of community. When we place community at the center, not the person of Jesus, we
right.
talk about community. And I know in your world and my world, this is probably common. If we tune our ear and you hear churches talk about what's the central organizing center, oftentimes in our circles, it's community. And I think we set up ourselves to get really hurt. And I know in our case we did
Yeah,
because there's this dynamic of like this community is amazing. I finally found the healing safe community, and we put
yeah.
all of this weight to
Mm,
be the community of belonging, and they're going to see me and they're going to care for me, and I'm going to care, and it's going to be Acts 2, but we're putting unconscious expectations of emotional need meeting that only God can
yeah.
meet that we can echo. So I talk about source and echo. The
Okay.
source of these things is Christ himself. The church can be the echo of that, but we
Uh,
know it's an echo. We know it's not the source. So I can put appropriate expectations on the echo, not the source.
yes.
Like, so I can put the expectations on the source, and then I can look to the source to see how the source will use the echo to echo the
Yeah,
source's care and needs that I have to meet those needs. But when we make community the source, we will set ourselves up to eventually get really hurt
yeah,
and disappoint and frustrate each other because we, as Henry Nouwen says, we're limited lovers. We just can't do it.
yeah,
And
yeah,
so that weight causes a community to buckle, and that's anxiety.
yeah,
That's
yeah.
pressure that we're putting on a community, and it's codependence. And
Mm,
that will ultimately what it does is it
yeah,
sends people into this place of like deep frustration and hurt because we set them up and told them we won't hurt you, we'll only heal you, but we can't we can't do it. So we have to be
I
honest with
know.
people.
Yeah,
If you stay here, you'll get hurt, and I'm sorry for that. And here's what happens when you get hurt. Here's what you can do with that. And here's where you can go with that. And here's how we can talk about it.
yeah,
But you will get
yeah,
hurt.
yes.
And we are going to keep pointing ourselves and each other to Jesus. And community can echo that. But
That's
it's
true.
not the source of all of this need, getting our
Yes,
needs met. It's not the source of it. And we can't be
yeah,
that for each other. We can love each other as limited
yeah.
lovers. Let's just be honest about those limitations.
That's great. John, tell me about the moment when you begin to wake up that you formed a codependent relationship with your church and how to begin to address that, whether that's through boundaries or accepting your limits, healing work. Like
Yeah.
what you had, I know you had some rude awakening as well as I did, and then the changes had to start occurring. But can you tell me about that moment and that kind of phase?
Yeah. Well, thank God, the the best thing that could ever happen to me, and I'm not wishing this on anybody, is that I had a nervous breakdown. So the
Mm,
my internal tolerance for absorbing anxiety hit a tipping point
yes.
past, you know, into an auto, into my automated nervous system's inability to cope with it, my autonomic nervous system's inability to cope with it. And so that tipped me over into an involuntary bodily reaction, which was the best thing that ever happened to me at that up to that
Mm,
point in my life. I mean, that the thing that I was trying the hardest to avoid is the thing I needed to
yes.
be the revelation and the waking up
Yes.
and this the spiritual, the spiritual awakening. And so
Yes.
when through the process of the pain of that, I started to like recognize, oh, there's some dynamics happening here that are being put on me and that I'm accepting. And
Mm,
there's two things I want to say. On slide 5, I didn't have language for this, but I've thought a lot about this since, and I think maybe this is a map you could look at depending on your gift set. But we have a we we crave these leadership
um,
archetypes,
yeah.
and these archetypes help help us recognize that people might be doing this to us. And so if you have
Yeah.
a teaching gift, or if you're a caregiver, or if you're a
Yeah.
visionary, these are three ways that people might be looking to you for
Mm,
something that you can't give them. And so I had to learn to like start to do this, hold these things differently. I'm not all three. I'm primarily visionary, maybe teacher. Um,
hmm.
but I was giving too much of myself past
Yes.
what my gifts had capacity for, and I was going further than that as a try to be something for people that I couldn't be for them.
Yes.
And so when I had this awakening, I realized, oh, I've collected a church full of people who are here mapping on that they're here because they lack meaning, and they feel filled up with this sense of exhilaration from the meaning that I make out of the vision that I'm calling
Right.
us to and that we're pursuing together. But because what would happen is I would see this in 18-month windows where
Yeah.
they would 18 months love it. Like
Right.
in a way now I'm like I get weirded out when people are like, I love what you're doing. I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
Like I've heard that before. And then
Yeah.
18 months later, you
Yeah.
would start to see this kind of like, hey, I'm not so into this, or, there would be a dis-ease that
Hmm.
they couldn't even figure out. They
Yeah.
didn't
Yeah.
even know was there. They didn't have language for. And then within 36 months, certain personality types would be like, hey, this church sucks and we hate you.
Mm,
And that's this dynamic of like, not that I'm comparing myself to Jesus in this way, but like, Hosanna, Hosanna, crucify him. This dynamic of like, you're great, you're amazing, this is amazing. I hate this place, you guys suck. It's like, what happened?
mm,
Well, because people were mapping on their need for meaning to be a part of this bigger thing that was giving their life a certain sense of purpose and meaning. And that we were promising, if you're a part of this, you can be a part of this thing that God's doing, excitement that you can't sustain for people. And especially if they're
mm.
putting that kind of unconscious weight on you
Yes.
to provide that for them versus the person of Jesus, and they don't know they're
Yes.
doing it and you don't know they're
Yeah.
doing it, and one day they wake up and they're like, I hate this place, and they don't even know why.
Yeah. Tell me about John. Tell me what happens when you change the social contract. Like you intentionally start changing it and the responses that occur when you start making that move.
Yeah. Show slide 6, because this is a map. that I really
Love it.
want people I want people to have, because this is a way to walk to that answer. So um this is a differentiation map, and our
Mm,
language is differentiation is that we are spiritually deep, we are non-anxious, and we are courageous leaders.
mm,
And differentiation is the capacity to stay connected to another while remaining grounded in your own identity, values, and emotions. And so
mm,
on this map, you have the two personalities that we discussed earlier, where you have personalities that enmesh and they fuse emotionally, and so they might get over involved. They might they might try to manage people's keep people happy, manage people's emotions. You know, this is family system stuff too. But
yeah,
they will give up pieces of their agency and pieces of their authenticity to keep people close
yeah.
and to keep people happy and liking them. I
Mm,
was in a conversation yesterday with a leader who was just saying, I can't handle people being mad at me. And
mm,
and we were unpacking that. It's like, yeah, let's be curious about that. And for them, what they realized is they needed, by having people like be okay with them and be good with them, it validates them that they're okay and they're good. So the external
mm,
validation hits their internal need for validation and becomes the validation that they need to be good with themselves.
yes,
And that's enmeshment.
yes.
Um, and then on the other side, you know, is disengagement and detachment. So, you know, this is the emotionally fused. The opposite is detached. I'm running into my cave, shut the door, stay away, like don't bother me. I can't take it.
Mm-hmm,
You know,
mm-hmm.
put your head down,
Yeah,
as a way to protect from everything that people are trying to pull out of you or what you feel like they're trying to extract out of you.
yes,
And, you know, this is like build the wall emotionally. Don't let them have your
yeah.
emotions. Don't let them have anything from you that way. Protect
Mm,
yourself from through disconnection and limit intimacy, build the wall. And so these are, you know, these are two places that we go in response to this pressure. And
yeah,
differentiation is actually holding the tension where we are spiritually rooted, non-anxious, and courageous, and that we can hold a tension of being present to those emotions,
mm,
present to our emotions, our needs, but separate from. So I'm
mm,
over here, I'm the H. I'm over here and you're over there. So we talk
yeah,
about, you know, people, when you get when you become aware of these things and this anxiety, you start to find that you have a courage, because you're spiritually rooted and non-anxious, that you
yeah.
can metabolize the capacity to disappoint
Mm,
and be okay with yourself. And what happens is, in my case was extreme. I'm not saying this is going to happen to everybody, but once I got healthy, we lost about 35 or 40% of our church over the next 18 months
mm,
after I got healthy, because
mm,
I stopped playing God for people. And I didn't know I was playing God for them before, but I stopped, and I
mm,
stopped going that extra mile. I started building in boundaries. I started limiting what I was giving out. And
mm,
I realized, oh my gosh, I've been overpromising like crazy. I turned
mm,
down our utopian descriptions of community.
yeah,
I tempered
yeah.
our vision. It was our
Mm,
vision, not my vision. And I put
mm,
things back on people like, what are you hearing from the Lord? We don't want to hear from the Lord. We want to hear from you. What's the vision? Where are we going? I don't know where we're going. We need to discern that together. The Lord's going to speak that to all of us, not just to one of us. Well, that takes too much time. What they were
yeah,
saying was, my anxiety can't metabolize the time it would take for us to have a clear vision. I need meaning and purpose right now.
Mm,
And and so it was like 18 months of like, I can't be God for you. We can't be like, we can't do that. We can't meet that need. Only God can meet that need. Let's turn to him. Um, and 18 months of me, on that chart, the way you find differentiation is like a drunken sailor. Like you go too far this way into enmeshment, and you're like, okay. Then you find yourself swinging too far towards
yeah,
disengagement, and
yeah,
detachment. And you're like, okay, well, back over here. And so what happens is it's like back and forth,
yeah,
where you find an equilibrium where you're holding this kind of like surfing tension between
yeah.
I'm present to, but I'm separate from. I'm present to,
Mm,
but I'm separate from. And then you're finding your way there of like tempering
mm,
expectations, but meeting needs as you can, as you have it to give. You know how to cultivate recreation within yourself so that you're not giving on empty, and
yeah,
so you're just surfing that. But the courage part is it means that you will disappoint and frustrate people's
yes.
unspoken expectations. And
Yeah, John,
there's
that's
just
that's
no other
that's
way.
huge. Yeah, there's no other way. That's when the work that we do at Canale is all of this that we're talking about. I see the blockage still. Is there a way to do this and not disappoint? That becomes a real stuck point, a constipation that I get all this. I know this is all true, but there's got to be a way to do this without letting people down and disappointing people.
Yeah. And I think we can. So if I was going to go back
Yeah,
and rewind, and this is why I love that I get to talk about this, because maybe this gives you language to go back and rewind in a
yeah,
way that you can explain things or have a framework for like what's happening. I wish I could go back and just help people understand. Wait, we're caught in an anxious system.
yes,
Wait,
yes,
we can't be God for each other. Wait,
yes,
and start to
yes,
like, let's get the differentiation map out. Let's put this,
yeah,
see what's happening here and see what I'm doing and see what you're doing. I wish I could have done that. I obviously can't, but you can if you're listening and you feel like this is relevant. But I think in our case, because I didn't have that language, people just felt abandoned and they felt like I stopped caring.
um, I see.
And and it wasn't because I was like, I'm not gonna be God for you. I was way more like savvy and pastoral nuance than that. But it was
Yeah,
like just it because I didn't have the language to say, here's what's happening and here's how this anxiety is working. And so I
mm,
can't do this any longer for these reasons.
yeah,
And
yes,
like these needs that you have, like you have to take those to Jesus and we can help you with that, but we can't be that for you.
yes,
Because I didn't have that, I think that's why it was such a cliff. I
I
think that's why
see.
it's so dramatic, where like I didn't have the
Yeah,
language and people didn't have the language. So they just interpret it as you're
right.
just holding out on us, or you
Yes,
stopped caring, or where did your vision mojo go? We're here for that. And like it's gone. And it's
yeah,
like it
yes,
never actually left. It was
right.
just being manifest. That gift is
Yeah,
being manifest in a different way, like inviting people into a shared process of discernment where we all have to listen to the Lord. And and so I think like you can let people down easy if you have language for it. But if you think that you can become, and Edwin Friedman talks about this in Failure of Nerve,
yeah,
if you think you can break the anxious cycle without frustrating unmet expectations in others, like, and you can get out of that completely without frustrating unmet expectations with others, it's not it's not possible because they're unmet
yeah,
expectations. Like, and because they're
right.
often unconscious expectations, right? Unmet
Yes, yes,
expectations are often unconscious expectations.
conscious. Yeah,
And because they're unconscious, people will interpret it the not meeting of those unconscious expectations, people will interpret that as through whatever lens they're going to interpret that through.
Yes. Yeah.
And it
I have a
usually,
friend,
yeah,
that's great. I have a friend that says that you find out that people fell in love with your false self. When you start changing the social contract, you find out that
yeah,
people fell in love with your false self. So you have to be kind and gracious about that shift for them because they really did, fell in
yeah,
love with a part of you that may not have been the whole of you
that's right.
or the true you. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think, I think that term is, I think your description is right. Compassion.
Yeah.
We can have compassion for those who have bonded with parts of us
Yes.
that we're meeting and we're their attempt to meet a need in their life that only Jesus can
Yes.
meet.
Yeah.
And it's like I have compassion for that, but what they need from me in that is courage
Hmm.
because my courage, rooted spiritually deep, non-anxious courage, is what's needed to break the anxious
Yes.
cycle and the
Yes.
the codependent contract. And somebody has to go first and somebody has to disrupt it so that
Yeah.
everybody, if for those who are willing and will to be
Yeah.
healthy and to wake up out of that kind of
Yes.
amnesia, the
Yeah.
amnesia of codependence in that anxious system,
That's great.
somebody has to go first. And so those
Mm.
who go first will draw frustration from
Yes.
others. But that's okay because it's like, what was interesting in my story, because of the healing that I received through the process in the second 18 months when everybody was leaving, I was okay. I worked
Yeah.
so hard in the previous 3 years to like
Yeah.
keep everybody, which led to them leaving, you know,
Yeah.
but as they were leaving, I had a separate self and like I'm okay. And I was
Mm.
sleeping, I could sleep at night and
Mm.
I could
Yes.
release them. I could even have gratitude for the season that they were with us
Yeah.
and I could let them go
Yeah.
and have joy because I was me over here and they were them over there making their choices
That's good.
and doing what they have to do to walk the path that they
Yes.
have to walk. And
Yeah.
it's not my fault and it's not because of me. I'm ashamed.
Yeah.
On the Enneagram, I'm in the
Yep.
shame triad. Like I'll take the blame for that. It's like, no,
Mm.
I'm not going to take the blame for that. It's not mine to
Yes.
carry.
Yes. That's good. Hey, let's take some questions. We've got a few that came in. Um, is that okay, John?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, oh, so we don't have any questions. We've just got a lot of like, this is awesome. I love this discussion. I've got a couple more questions. The Tell me about scapegoating. Have I think this is related, but when you begin to differentiate and not own the anxieties of the community, you say, I'm not going to be possessed that way, not out of anger or shame or fear, but out of health. I have seen scapegoating start to, almost settle into a community, almost like it starts to become another member of the church. Tell me what you've seen in scapegoating when a leader decides to take seriously differentiation.
Yeah. I think in my case, I mean, crassly, I think it goes, and I think it's different in church plants from traditional churches.
Yep.
I've seen I've seen traditional churches when the leader breaks the social contract and gets healthy, I've seen them push that leader out. Um,
Yes.
they start to, place on the sacrifice the anxieties of the community. So that's that
Yeah.
Hosanna, crucify him. So what
Yeah.
starts it with Hosanna becomes crucify him, and they'll find reasons, or crucify her. They'll find reasons for why the
Yeah.
crucifixion is necessary, or why this person has is
Yes.
no longer a good fit or whatever.
Yeah.
Because it's a church plant, in my case, church plants, they're less likely to run you out on a rail. They're just going to leave,
Yeah.
which is what they did. It's like,
Yeah.
well, we're I think by them leaving, they put scapegoat power on me,
Yes.
but they just
Yeah.
left.
They
If you're
left.
in a
Yeah.
traditional church, it's like we got here before you showed up. We're going to be here after you're gone.
Right.
It's time for you to
Yeah.
go. And I
I
know
have
multiple examples of
yeah.
pastors who got healthy and then within 18 months were in a very unhealthy way pushed out.
Yes. Yes. Dan Allender talks about um this, I think was similar kind of the similar kind of framework, but he says that typically in the traditional structured church, scapegoating looks like ruin. So we we were here before you, and so we have to ruin you. We've got to mark you in such a way that you're unusable for
Mm,
us here. And
mhm,
then typically within non-traditional communities, church plants, you have rejection. Like the second R is,
mhm,
well, then I never wanted you to begin with. And so rejection is the way that scapegoating occurs there.
mhm.
And the third, which is not scapegoating, which is what we're hoping for, is that people receive us as we are. They say,
Yeah.
listen, you don't have to be the way I wanted you. I had expectations on you that I know that you can't meet, but I can still receive you as you are. And that's that's ultimately the healing that we want to see in our congregation, is that we actually can receive one another in the way that we
Hmm.
cannot be each other's spiritual mother or spiritual father or spiritual best friend or whatever the expectations are there, that we can receive
Yeah.
each other. But someone's got to go first.
Someone's got, and even the receiving, we have to receive ourselves. So
Yes,
we have to
yes,
receive our own limitations. We have to receive our own inabilities. We have to receive our own
yes.
boundaries. We have to receive
Tell
our
me,
own
yeah, dig into that a
belovedness.
little bit more, John. Like what? Why is that receiving those limits, using Henry Nouwen's language, is kind of the spirituality of weakness, like
Yeah.
accepting? Why is that so hard for leaders?
Yeah. Because leaders in today's anxious system, the wherever people are from, I live in Canada, it's an anxious
Yeah,
system. The US, it's an anxious system.
yeah,
Leaders in an anxious system are not allowed to be weak. That's
uh,
that's heresy. So
yes. Ooh,
in my experience, Paul talks about, of course I boast in my weaknesses. What are you talking about? Are you kidding?
right.
Of course, these things are great. These are gifts from God,
Yeah.
these limitations. Outwardly I'm wasting
Yes.
away, but inwardly I'm being renewed day by day. I mean, yeah, this is the good stuff. Like it's the fellowship of suffering with Christ. Like who wouldn't want to have weaknesses? These things are great. This is
Yeah.
how the gospel goes forth. Well, I started doing that naively. When I got back, it's like I'm just going to brag about my weaknesses. And like that doesn't go well in an anxious system when we need
Right.
our leaders to be archetypal sage bringers, archetypal
Yeah.
co-regulating caregivers, and archetypal visionary meaning bringers,
Yes. Yes.
right? So that I think that's the challenge, is that people do not, it's like, get back on the white horse, get up there.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
no, I want off the white horse, get it back on the white horse.
Yes.
So it's like we have to just say, I'm off the white horse and I'm
Yeah.
okay. I'm
Yeah.
okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. We did get one question here in the last couple minutes we got left. Could or would either of you ever pastor again? If so, what would you do differently? Oof. There's some assumptions there about whether we're pastoring or not, but
I know.
let,
Uh,
let's look at that.
maybe the question is congregational pastoring because like I feel
Yeah,
like
yeah,
I'm
yeah,
uh I'm very much up to my elbows in pastoring in a way that
yeah.
I'm really enjoying.
Let's look at the congregation. What are some things that you from this that you would do differently?
Um, I think, my late 40s self would tell my 30s, early mid 30s self, um, to what we were talking about, like be really strong in your strengths, be really content in your weaknesses, be really
Mm,
strong, like hone those strengths, but they're not who you are. Hone those abilities, be the best you can be with those abilities,
yeah,
but they're not who you are. They're not what defined you. Um, you know, have an identity crisis with yourself, unbond from those things as an identity. They're not an identity.
yeah,
They're a beautiful capacity that God's put in you, and hone and use that capacity, offer it up, but be content with your weaknesses and don't try to stretch far beyond them to be something that you can't be. And
yeah,
be content with that. And then if the thing doesn't grow and it doesn't work, that's not your fault.
yeah. Mm,
That's not your fault.
mm.
There's a lot of forces and factors at play. And if you were bringing the best that you knew to bring, you're content in your weaknesses, and you have to be crushed under for this thing to work, then it's not real.
It's not real. Yeah, that's so good. It's
Yeah.
so good. John, I know you said you were scratching the surface, but I think we got a little deeper than I expected. I'm so grateful. Um, this is this is culture altering if we take it seriously. And I just
Mhm.
want people to know that your organization, Lead from Transformation, is doing great work. And if you're on this call or using this recording later and you're looking for resources or help or guidance, reach out to John's organization. And if you're looking for support around church planting that takes the spiritual weakness seriously,
Mm.
look us up. But thanks so much, John, and I look forward to more conversations. Have a blessed day.
Yeah. Thanks, everybody. Thanks, Dan. This is a joy.
Yeah, welcome. Bye bye.